So Doug Hammer and his wife and his brother-in-law and his sister-in-law and parents, in-laws decided to go on Family Feud, and they did. They competed on television there and won and got some money. And Doug decided to use the money to spend going to an Ansel Adams workshop in Yosemite National Park. And he brought with him one of the cameras that he had built. He builds 4x5 cameras at the time, made out of wood. And Ansel Adams was so impressed with his camera that he invited him to become an assistant for him at his next workshop there in Yosemite, and also in what was it, Carmel, I think it was. He assisted him. So he has some great stories about Ansel Adams, and we, if you get a chance to hear him, you'll be amazed. So I remember one that he was talking about being in the dark room when Ansel Adams was printing the picture of the what was it, moonlight over sunrise.
Moonrise,
Okay.
Hernandez, Mexico.
Okay.
New Mexico.
So anyway, he saw them. He would make a mistake. He'd just throw them in the trash. And he and his friend were standing there looking at these $1,000 prints, and they're worth millions now. They were going in the trash. But, but anyway, he has some fun stuff to share. I always learn something new because he researches stuff, he experiments, and he comes up with stuff I've never heard of. So, Doug, come on and introduce your subject.
Great. So this evening, I want to talk to you about the print, and I'm about let's see, it's been 52 years ago. I was not a photographer 52 years ago, and I happened to be, let's see, 52. What number should I use to let you know? So I was 20 years old, and I was in Yosemite with my wife on our honeymoon. And we went into the Ansel Adams Gallery, and I'm not sure if at that time it was the best gallery. I don't know if you recall that Ansel Adams married Virginia Best. Okay, and Virginia Best was the daughter of, I can't remember his name, but Mr. Best, and he was an artist. And he worked out of this little studio that became the Ansel Adams Gallery. And it switched over in 1971, and that's when I was there. So I don't know. I tried, and I couldn't figure out what month it was. We were there in February. And so anyway, I was so impressed, and I had never taken a photograph in my life. I didn't have a camera. I borrowed my dad's. It was about this big, and I was taking pictures on the trip. But we went into Ansel Adams Gallery there, and I'll never forget seeing there was a moonrise over Hernandez in New Mexico. And you've seen that. That is his most famous print. In fact, the mural size print just recently sold for just short of $1 million. And so it was somebody owned that print. It was a wall size print. But so anyway, but I was awestruck by this print and other prints. And so, and you can see these, and I know you've seen these prints up here. So this is an actual Ansel Adams print. All right. It's done by his assistant, Alan Ross, at the time. And I've had this for a number of years. And so this is a contact print from one of his negatives. And under Ansel Adams' guidance, Alan Ross would make these prints. And it's at a certain point, you could buy these for $100 in the Ansel Adams Gallery. I don't know what they sell for now. And so this one here was given to me by Ansel, who he signed it on the back, says, "Thanks, Doug," and it has signed Ansel Adams. It's kind of cool to have that. And for those of you that were not here at the other presentation, I don't want to double up on that. So I have what I believe is the only camera ever signed by Ansel Adams. So, and of course, my age now, and the kids are wondering who's going to get that camera, So I was at his house, and he, I asked him, I said, would you be willing to, at, I took the back off the camera. I had it all laid out and ready for him to sign. And he said, oh, sure. So he signed the camera, and it was in 1979. And it's very nice. And to hang around in his dark room and with John Sexton. I don't know if you know the name John Sexton. Okay, so John Sexton, he gave me this print that says, thanks, Doug, John Sexton. I was the best man in his wedding. So just so you get the connection there. Not that I was any great photographer, but I ended up trying to learn photography. And I have the whole series on the print, the negative, the camera. Have you seen this series? And I read these things 3 times and went over all the technical data. And that's how I learned how to do photography in a darkroom and with a view camera. And I couldn't afford, we had 4 kids. I couldn't afford to buy a view camera and a lens. So I made my cameras. I was somewhat of a woodworker. And so I made my cameras. And so that's how I got into this Ansel Adams thing. So these prints up here, some friends of mine traded and so on, but none of these are mine. There's 3 Ansel Adams. There's 2 Neil Chapman and 1 John Sexton. I just thought I'd bring these along. So this evening, this is what we're going to do. Okay, so the exhilarating experience of viewing a photographic print, which I'll just talk to you for a few minutes. We're going to talk about that. And then part 2, capturing the elusive saguaro cactus flower. So I went on this journey. So I wanted a photograph, a print of a saguaro cactus flower. And I thought, I've seen them in pictures and stuff, but nobody really did any artwork on this. There's always these kind of strange pictures, people putting, a lot of those little cell phone things. You've seen those, okay. And so they're taking pictures, you see them online. So we're going to take a look at that. And the third portion of the presentation is the presentation of photographs. And we're going to talk about how you want somebody to view your work. It's a bummer when, you've got this great photograph and you go like this and you say, hang on just a second here. And you've got this picture and you go like this. So here's the picture. See it? You went to all that work. You probably spent $12,000 on equipment. You've taken the photograph. And now you say, look at my picture, you see? And so, so I'd like to talk to you about how you present your photographs. And also, and I remember Ansel Adams saying that anybody that can get 12 good images a year is doing a really good job. Because he rarely did that. He rarely got 12 images that he really liked each year. And I can understand that because now the older I get, I'm getting more selective and I'm very careful anymore about what I go to the effort to produce. And so the print to me is the output of my work. And so, okay, so let's take a look at the first I told you about this. This was in 1971. The photograph was taken in 1941. Go to the next little line there. The photograph became so popular and collectible that Adams personally made over 100 prints of that. And in 1975, Ansel Adams, on January 1st, he cut off any more prints. He had it. And so he said, anybody that wants to order any more prints, you've got to get them in within so many days, okay? Galleries, museums, and so on. But he didn't realize what was going to happen. He was flooded. He was flooded with requests all over the country. And these prints, most of them were by 24 prints. And so I happened to, in 1979, when he signed my camera, John Sexton and I were in his darkroom when he was printing the final set, 125 of the Moonrise prints, that Wayne was mentioning. And he was in there and he was complaining because this is what was happening. The gallery would get the print for $500. They'd give it to the buyer for 20,000. And he knew this. He says, this is absurd. He says, it's just the prices have gone haywire. And so some of his prints, some of those things have gone for, $60,000, $70,000 now. And some of the older Moonrise print, there's a 1948 Moonrise print that was one of the originals before he changed it to the really dark sky, and where the moon is right in the middle of that picture. It's really odd, Here's this picture, right in the middle is the full moon. And then then there's a cloud here, and there's a bunch of crosses at the bottom. And so he's printing that, and of course he throws every third or fourth one in the trash. He doesn't like it because the negative such a poor exposure. And so it took a lot of time to print. But those prints, the 1948 print is upwards of $600,000 or $700,000 at the last auction. So you can look those things up. Okay, so I was really taken by the Moonrise print. I saw prints in 1971 again on our honeymoon in Carmel, Edward Weston, a lot of 8x10 contacts. The Pepper number 30, which was his most famous print. It's just a great print. And that was his kind of claim to fame. And then in 1979, when I visited their home there, and just standing, there was I don't know if you know, but Islam was like a concert pianist. He was a really good pianist. And at that time, his hands were really messed up from arthritis. And he could hardly operate a camera at that time. So he really needed help when he was operating the camera between 1979 and then in 84 when he passed away. So, but standing in their living room here were all these photographs, all these black and white photographs on the wall. And it was one of those things where wow, these are beautiful prints. And you can imagine photographs like this printed very large, well matted and framed, everything on the wall. So I really enjoyed that. So my photography, everything I have done is not about either building cameras or buying equipment or learning chemicals or f-stops or gigapixels or whatever you want. It was always about the print. And so we have too many pictures in our house. My wife is every wall's got photographs on it, and they keep getting bigger and bigger, this kind of thing. So I have enjoyed the print, and because I believe that is the best output. That's the way I would like people to view my photograph. And so a little later here, when I take this foam core board off of this, and I have this set up here, I'm going to walk you through, when we get to the last section here, I'm going to talk to you about how I would like you to view the photograph. And you'll notice there's tape on the floor. That's where I want you to stand. And the angle of the light. And so I'm going to talk to you about things. So, okay, so let's continue on. Some quotes. I take photographs to exist as prints. I can't tell if I have taken a good photograph until I see it printed. Nick Brandt, you ever seen Nick Brandt's work? Just look him up online, Africa, Animals. And I have his book, a wonderful book. Okay, next one, Bruce. The negative is the equivalent of the composer's score, and the print, the performance. That was the output. For my process, a photograph isn't a photograph until it's a print. I love the physical presence of a print. from beginning to end. I want it to be an object of beauty, whether the subject moves you or not. I really relate to this. So some of you will like these photographs. Some of you will like the photographs. Some of you may not, but I do want you to enjoy the effort that went in to the way it's presented. Okay, so so if you have something really bad to say, you can imagine I just start crying. Okay, so when you make prints, you deepen your relationship with your images. And then fine art prints created by the artist or the artist collaborator are important because they best represent the artist's vision. Images displayed on digital devices are subject to the non-uniform nature of different displays, and they may appear radically different than the artist intended. Now, this is a Mac Holbert, who was the co-founder with Nash Editions, Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young. Nash was a photographer and a printer, and Nash and Holbert put together this company called Nash Editions. They were the first digital printing company solely for photography. So they've been around a long time. So anyway, all right. Now I'm going to try to walk you through this. Am I okay on this here? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to try to walk you through this here, and I hope you see what's happening here. So capturing the elusive saguaro cactus flower. So I wanted photographs of this flower. And I thought, okay, how am I going to do this? The place, Saguaro National Park, is 7 hours away, about 6 or 6.5, maybe 5.5 for you guys. And so I wanted photographs, and that is what is behind these 3 pictures here, are 3 pictures of my finished work of saguaro flowers. And I'm going to tell you how I went about taking them. And there may be some new things for you, or it may be old stuff for you. But let's go ahead and take a look at those. And of course, wrestling it onto a sheet of photographic paper. That's what I really want to do. So saguaro, how many of you have been to Saguaro National Park? Oh, good, great. I really love that place. So it's called saguaro, by the way, not saguaro or something else like that. And it's only, these trees are only, or these cactus are only found in the Sonoran Desert, mostly in southern Arizona, in northern Mexico, and then just a few in southeast California. And they grow slowly, but they can live to 150 to 200 years. All right. And so largest cactus in the US, may grow a first sidearm, at the classic one, you got John Wayne riding through there's a cactus there. More than 50 arms may grow on one saguaro. They may never grow arms. Some are just straight up. And the spines on them can be as long as 3 inches. And so it's not one of these things you climb on, So they're about 3 inches, and they feel like steel. And when you hit them with your finger, you can grab at the end of the finger, and they twang like a piece of steel when you hit them. They're kind of a twangy sound. And you can see the note there in an article. A bighorn sheep obviously was running, must not have seen it, and there he was, and it killed him, So sharp spines, nearly as strong as steel. The park is very peaceful, very quiet. That's why I enjoy it. You can wander around, and there's very few people go there, and especially in May. And I'll talk to you about May there. They can be 40 to 60 feet tall. Some of those things, for those of you that have been there and you've seen those things and you're looking way up, those things can really get tall. And some of them look, all these guys were saying, "Hi, Doug." They look like you're waving to you. And I noticed that the backlighting And it looks just like that when you're far away. But the closer you walk up to these things, the backlighting goes away and you can see the individual spines. It's almost as if they glow a little bit from the distance. And so I had to use a long lens. You can see how they're all kind of compressed. A long lens captures that look where they're all outlined with the spines. But I thought, oh, that's really cool. I walk up to them and all that disappears and all you see is the spines. So, all right, continue on. And some saguaros get tired of holding their arms up, you know, so they look like that. And then the next one, that was fast. And some look like party animals, as you can see there. They're just wild and crazy. So also the sunsets almost every evening kind of looks like this. So I love the sunsets at the park there in that area. So this is so my first day when I went to photograph these flowers. I planned on three full days and nights there at the park. And I felt that I would do an early morning shoot and go out and find these things. So I realized, and go ahead and go out to the next one there. You'll see these saguaros. So that's up about 30 or 40 feet there. And reality strikes, which I didn't know about the flowers. Go ahead and put the next notes up there, that the saguaro cactus flowers grow at the ends of arms and the tops of the trunks only. And I thought, why did I not see that? How did I not know that? And I'm standing there and I'm going, this is impossible. How am I going to do it? I didn't bring a ladder. I don't have a tripod that tall. What am I going to do? And so continue on. Afternoon exploration, looking for saguaros with low hanging arms. So I was all over the park. Now I'm going, oh man, have I just wasted all this time that I was planning at the park there? So you can see these things and hiking numerous trails, driving dirt roads in the national park. And I had my binoculars. I'm looking everywhere. And so with binoculars, I see that these flowers are perfect for what I intended to do. Searching thousands of saguaros looking for reachable arms. I thought, how am I going to get to these flowers? So you can see here, so this one here is probably about 20 feet tall, and I use a little bit longer lens. In fact, the next, go ahead. Yeah, so flowers appear throughout May. They will come on about late April and sometimes into June. But some people say they've seen flowers as late as November, but just one here, one there. But when you go in the middle of May, this is what you will see everywhere. It is spectacular. I was really surprised and really pleased. So that was great. And then flowers bloom after sunset. So sun goes down, the flower blooms. Okay. And then they close in the afternoon and they die. Okay. So I did know that. I did research. And so because I felt that nice even light first thing in the morning would be the best time to go out because the flowers are full then. And so they don't open until 8 or 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And then the bats, there's a certain dove, there's insects, there's other birds and so on, and insects that are all over these flowers. And that's how they get pollinated. So, and then show the next picture there. There we go. So there's kind of a close-up of that. And you will see, you see this one here? It looks like it died off a few days ago. And this one here, that might have been from last week. But you see this one right here is probably going to go the next night. And this one's going to go maybe the next night. You see that? And so you can almost count, but all of these will be dead by the afternoon. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be really tricky because I want to get out there when the light is nice, first thing in the morning, and I've got to go to the few trees and go to the next slide, Bruce, thank you. So I located 5 saguaros with low-hanging arms and flowers out of all those. And so, however, not all low-hanging arms were accessible. You can imagine. So here is a cactus right where I need to put my tripod. So now you got this problem because there's cactus, there's sharp things everywhere. Everywhere you go, there's sharp stuff. And accessible, able to place a tripod without standing on other cactus, especially jumping cholla. Have you ever seen those things? I had read about these, and it wasn't until I was so focused on taking a picture of something else. I looked down at my feet, and it was like I had sandals on, and these things had surrounded my feet. And I thought, and they're so sharp. And the more you move, the more they dig in, and they call them jumping cholla because they don't actually jump, but all it takes is just a brush and they're on you. So, and they are really, really sharp. Took me a half an hour to remove them from my shoes. Okay, it's now 3:45 a.m. Sunrise is at 5:30. Okay, I'm alone. It's very dark. I mean, it's pitch black, very quiet. I'm on a dirt road near the trail leading to 2 of these saguaros that I'm going to photograph, eating granola bars. And then, without warning, 2 coyotes that were very nearby decided to just let loose with their like this. Oh man, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. And they were standing, and I pulled my flashlight out, go on to the next thing there. Flashlight, coyotes appear to be smiling. You know how coyotes are, they're really cruel. And they're standing right on the trail to the 2 saguaros. And so I decided to wait a little bit, which I think is the next line, for my heart to recover. But going out there in the pitch dark to try to get ready for before sun comes up, because I didn't want any sun on the flowers. I wanted even light. I wanted new flowers. And so there's just a small window for the flowers. All right. Creating the cactus, the saguaro cactus flower photograph. All right. So am I in your way here? Here, let me, okay. So this is what I'm, for those of you that are interested in equipment. So I have a Nikon D850. It's a 40 some odd megapixel camera. I use Zeiss lenses. I have 4 Zeiss lenses, and none of them are automatic focus. They're all manual focus lenses. These are the Milvis series. And then this is all manual focus, manual exposure, tripod, and I'm going to do a focus stack. Everybody know what a focus stack is? Okay, well, I'm gonna show you how I went about this, because I was not familiar with this until I planned to go out there. All right. And so after I show you these, I'll show you my test picture that I took in my backyard to figure out how to do focus stacking. So this was the second time I did focus stacking. And what I would do is I put my hand in front of the camera to signal, okay, there's a mess coming up here, so get ready for it, So when I get back to my images on my computer, I know where this thing starts. Okay, so here's the first picture. That's the first picture I took. Now you'll notice that, this is f/5.6 at a 15th. Notice how bright the sky is, okay? Just because of the lengthy exposure. Notice this is a macro lens. Okay, very good, really nice macro lens. f/5.6. It's not quite wide open, but this is not like f/32 or f/64, because there's some really nice sweet spots in lenses, which are usually 2 to 4 stops above its most open stop. And so I'm using the best optics that I know how to use for this lens. So I use f5.6 at a 15th, and I'm shooting ISO 64. Okay, everybody know those numbers? That's not new to any. Okay, I begin with the nearest important subject and work to the furthest. Okay, so for me it was near flower to far flower. All right, and you'll notice, and Bruce, go to the next picture, which Bruce helped me out with this. So you'll notice that I was obviously focused. Can you tell that this is focused and that's out of focus back there? You can see that. Okay, so I take a photograph here. Okay, go to the next one. So here's a note, same exposure. Uh, and this is not very many seconds. I think it was like 8 or 9 seconds later. Use of a tripod, careful not to move the camera tripod between photos, standing on a milk crate. I'm so glad I had a milk crate in the back of the car because I wouldn't have been able, and I could hardly see. I'm up like this on the milk crate. And one time when I was doing one of these shots, the whole thing went over and fell into another cactus. So it's a very tenuous situation. So this one here, okay, let's go to the next one here. So now notice this is soft, but this is now looking better. Okay, that's the second shot. Okay, and okay, let's go to the third one. And look, see, I'm still in 434. Okay, 434. In fact, they were all taken within 1 minute because the light is changing fast. Flowers are open, no wind. It was very warm. In fact, they had an unusually hot spell when I was there. It was over 100 degrees during the day. Okay, let's go to the next shot there. And notice now, look at the far one out there. Is this number 4? I can't remember. So number 4. And so you can see that that's in focus. And then I think I came back, go to the next one, because I think you got the idea. Work as quickly as possible to avoid variations in lighting. There's 4, that's good. And then number 5, and I realized that I wanted this area back here down inside the flower. So I took one more exposure. This is not like, I realized it's not like rocket science. And I also realized that there are cameras now that can do this automatically for you. But there's one thing about focus stacking that is a problem. You can make a photograph look unrealistic. The eye and what we expect to see, and you will notice that I did not include the trunk. I didn't include the trunk as part of my focus stack. It would have messed everything up. Everything in focus is just not what we're used to. And so when we see a finished image and we see everything so tack sharp, it actually looks odd. And so you have to be careful when you're using that kind of technique. Also, focus stacking, I looked at a number of high-end photographic contests. There's a new one in the last couple of years, people in the United States and 2 people in the UK. And they put this whole thing together and they have entries from all over the world. And then they have this whole list of judges and this whole judging process. It's a layered judging process. It's very interesting. And what they did not allow, and you have to send images, you have to send the raw image in. And so, but one of the things that was perfectly permissible was focus stacking. I said, oh, that's good, focus stacking, because they said all it does is clarify the image. They're not changing the image, but they clarify the image. And so anyway, I thought that was an interesting thing because I didn't want to come here and say, hey, look at the sky you can put in here, okay, so notice the background. I took the tree out, that kind of thing. So anyway, so we can go to the last, okay, there we go. Now the step-by-step focus stacking, I brought some, this is what I do, okay? So there's 30 of these sheets, all right? So 30 of these sheets, you feel free to take one of those. That's what I do. And then you can go to fstoppers.com on that website there, or you can go to Adobe and they'll go through it and show you how to do that. and they have different ways of doing it. Different people do different things. Some people turn them all to JPEGs before they do the focus stack. I do it raw, I do them in the raw, you know, so but there's different ways of doing that. Some people will even go through and process their images a little bit before they do the focus stacking. So anyway, so that's what I had done. Okay, so this is the image now. So 5 images stacked using Photoshop. The saguaro trunk was intentionally left blurry. Flowers and buds are good. Okay, so we got a big close-up shot. So you can see now, I got the best of all the worlds, you see, for the flowers and so on in the picture. And this is kind of what, so when I first did this, and that was the first one that I had done when I got back to my office, I was pleased with the way it came out. I really liked it. I like the blurred background and the, you'll notice that the arm going up, because the arm's going to catch some of these layers that I was taking. And so I was pretty well pleased with the way that came out. And so now go to the next one here. And so this is you need to calibrate your monitor, I can tell. So, but so I did a backyard rose as a test. You know, it was our first rose. We had planted a bunch of rose bushes the previous December or January, and this was our first. And so same lens, same camera, this time f8, 20th of a second. And notice the closer the lens to the subject, the narrower the depth of field. That's a physical thing, may require more images. So this image here is 10 images versus the 5 that I did on the other group of flowers. So the picture that I did in order to practice, and it was a lot of fun to do that, to figure that out. So and I'm glad I did that, because I wouldn't have, I don't think I would have had any success on the other flowers. Okay, here's another one here. So this is a landscape picture. 3 images for this one here, and because I wanted this sand. I was just here not long ago at the White Sands National Park, and I wanted the sand, the detail in the sand, and I wanted the detail in the far sand. And so this is a 35 millimeter lens. This is a wide angle lens. And I would have thought that I could have taken an exposure at f8 with a 35 millimeter lens on a landscape like that, and everything would have been close to being in focus, far and near. So what I did was I took 3 exposures. Okay, so go ahead and go to the next one there, Bruce. There you go. So this, and you can see a stick here. So I focused on this to start with, focused on the nearest sand, and then go to the next one, focused on nearest yucca, and then focus on the far yucca, which gave me the distance. And image came out, it came out just right. But I looked carefully at each one of the images, and none of them had everything in focus with a 35 millimeter lens, which you normally go out f8, 35 millimeter, that should be good. So, but it was not satisfactory for me on that. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the presentation of photographs, and not just the ones you're going to see here, but what I would like to go through every time somebody looks at a photograph of mine. And so when I thought about this, it was last July, and I did a driveway series. I live in a complex of 70 townhomes, and my wife and I wanted to find ways of getting to know more people in the neighborhood. So I took, it's this easel here, because this has got a wider. I took this easel, which I had in the garage, And I just built the other two a couple days ago. So this easel, and I took images, I took a frame with a picture already in it, and I set it out on the driveway. It looked just like this. Extension cord, I put it out on the driveway, kind of in the bushes, but to where anybody walking by could see the picture. And one of my granddaughters helped me all get it all set up. And we set it up before dark, turned the light on, and let it go. Well, as it turned out, I did that 30 nights, 30 different pictures, only these 4 frames, you can imagine. So the pictures were all printed, the right sizes for the mats. And so I do all my own printing. And I have a 17-inch printer, Epson printer. And so I printed these images. What it did, it brought, first of all, a few people that come out first night. Went off, told me, hey, so you ever see this picture? They're from all over the place, all over the United States. And every night, so I would go out there, I'm in the middle of a movie, I go out, I leave it out there until 10 o'clock at night. And I go out there, there's a pile of people out there, all standing around. What started the conversation was the picture. Now they're not even looking at the picture, but they're all talking to each other about places they've been, things they've seen. And so, and I have a lot of really unique places. Wayne and I have been to some bizarre places like the Bisbee Badlands. That's a great place. And Wayne just got back from Little Finland, you know, places like that that are just great to visit. And so I have a lot of photographs that I can show. And so it was fun to watch people come. And then when we were done, on night 27, I had a note out saying, this is the last night, except for in the next nights are going to be my third favorite from the 27, my second favorite, and my favorite picture. So I showed 3 pictures again for the last 3 pictures. So it turned out it's such a simple thing to do. This I spend about $10 making my easels. You can see they're some of them bent legs and stuff. You know, Home Depot 1x2s. You know, so it says. And then I have this other piece, and then this is a Home Depot light, except the bulb. It's a very kind of a special bulb. I'll talk to you about that. And so the angle of this, the way it's set up and so on, is how I want people to view my photographs. And so this thing that we did over 30 days, we got all kinds of notes and thank yous and stuff, and asking, hey, Doug, could you use the clubhouse and do a whole gallery back? So anyway, it is a fun way to show photographs the way I would like to see them shown, and yet to bring all these people together. It was a lot of fun, and we really enjoyed it. So let's these notes here, and then so the height of a photograph. Who would have ever thought that there's a height that you should show a photograph? Okay. The general rule is to locate the vertical center of a photograph 57 inches from the floor. Okay. So each one of these photographs to the center is 57 inches. Right. Now, and the reason, so go to the next note there, and you can see 57 inches. Go to the next note. This reflects the eye height of the average person and is used as a standard in most galleries and museums. Many people knew that. All right, good. Yeah, I should have put like 56.2 or something. Right. Okay, let's go to the next one, the height. The viewing distance from the photograph, all right? So the rule of thumb, the viewing distance from the photograph to the viewer should be 1.5 to 2 times the diagonal of the photograph. How many people did that? Okay, there you go. That's good. So in other words, now I know you're all photographer, so you probably already have your magnifying glasses. You're going to go, oh yeah, let me see this print. You know, so there's a line on the floor. All right. Now it's not electrified beyond that. So it's free. You can look any distance you want. But this is exactly 1.5 times, you know, the go down a little bit further. You all remember the Pythagorean theorem, you know, that's how you get to that. So the diagonal for the 16 by 20 inch prints on the easels, 25.6 inches, viewing distance, 38 to 50 inches. So I got it at 38. I'm not afraid of you getting close, okay? So tape on the floor in front of each print is 38 inches to provide reference, just so you get an idea, all right? So when you view my photographs, I'm trying to control that. You see that? Instead of you looking on your uncalibrated electronic device. You see that? Okay, next slide. Lighting. The print is created based on lighting, which the print will be viewed. Okay, so if I'm going to print a photograph and hang it in a fairly dark room, how am I going to print it? And I want people to see, I have to print it really light so you can see it. Because if I print it dark for a light, it's not going to look the same. They're never going to look the same. So I print based on the way it's going to be viewed. You see that? So I can change that with my printer. And so go on to the next slide. After a print is created, it is viewed under preferred lighting conditions, and the print is adjusted and reprinted as needed. So in my gallery garage, I redid our whole garage. I told my wife, it's no longer a garage. We don't just put stuff in the garage. It's a gallery. And if you'd like to store something out there, let's talk about it, all right? So I have lights set up out there just like this. I print a picture, I take it out there and I clip it up. No, that's too light. No, this, go back, I make adjustments, I reprint. Normally, I get it on the second hit, but sometimes it takes 3 sheets of paper, all right? And the paper that I use, I won't get into that right now. That's another complexity. Okay, clamp-on work light gallery garage with 50-watt, 90 CRI, I'll get to that in a minute, 3000 K bulbs, just like the lights on the easels tonight. So that's what I have on that. Go to the next. Okay, lighting continued. Color temperature, you know, in Kelvin. Okay, color in Kelvin. So 3000 to 4000 for most museums and galleries is acceptable. Some people like to go as high as 5000. All right. And the higher you go, the more blue the light, the lower the light. All right. So the color rendering index, I don't know if you've ever come across the CRI, measure of the ability of a light source to reveal colors faithfully. Greater than or equal to 90 is very good. 100 is max. But you'll get a lot of bulbs and so on color onto your photograph. And be careful about that for how that's seen. Okay, a lot of these galleries and so on, they're talking about the angle of the light. So right here, this plane here and this plane here, 30. Okay. And the reason for that, let's see, did I put the reason for that on here? No, not yet. Okay. So the reason is that at 30 degrees, there's no shadows from either the frame, sometimes frames are thicker. There's no shadow from the mats and so on. And if it comes around too far, then it's shining and you're looking at this and it's coming off the glass, you know. And you can buy that really, the True View high-dollar glass, which I don't do. I've done it 3 or 4 times. It's just ridiculously expensive. It'd be nice if that price went down, but I think we got kind of a corner on the market. So 30 degrees on the angle of the light. Okay. The last thing I'm going to talk to you about is outgassing. One of my just favorite subjects, outgassing. This is not like a bodily function. This is a photographic function, and it is called outgassing. And what happens on photographs, on digital photographs, none of these are digital. but on digital photographs, uh, inkjet printing is done obviously with different colored inks, but they use glycol to keep the nozzles from freezing up or from clogging. So they put glycol in there. And so the image has all these colors in it and with glycol. And now you've got to let the print dry, dry and dry. And the glycol eventually evaporates. On the type of paper that I use, which I have discovered in preparing for this evening, I discovered that the paper that I really like and that I use is the worst paper for outgassing because it is a resin type paper and it does not allow the ink to dry out through the back of the paper. So everything's got to dry out the front. The ink dries, but the glycol doesn't come immediately. So what happens, okay, let's go through this and I'll show you what happens. Inkjet problem occurring with glossy or semi-glossy paper. And then reaction happens when glycol evaporates slowly and creates oily fog on the glass of a framed photograph. Done this many, many times. You'll take the glass off, you'll look at your image, and if you just give it like this against some light, you'll see your image. You'll see your image on the glass. And what happens, that oily fog diminishes the clarity of the image. Okay, so that's why outgassing is a problem in presenting. So the oily fog can diminish the clarity. Go to the next one. Glycol inks slows evaporation, prevents nozzle clogs. To prevent it, they got to be really dry. And if you go online and talk and see threads of people arguing about this, it is quite a deal what they will go through. Professional photographers that have sold hundreds and hundreds of prints of art prints and now finding out about this, they put their prints behind glass and now they're wondering, they've got 1,500 prints out there behind glass and they never thought about this. They rushed the prints to a show. They were just printed. They try to dry them out as quickly as possible. They put them in a frame. They're behind glass. They're locked in there and the glycol has no place to go. So that's what the problem is. Okay. And there are a few more notes. The only way to remove glycols is heat and air movement or absorbent paper. A hair dryer. I use a hair dryer, my wife's hair dryer. I'll use that, but I will do this over a week's period. And I've done it again. I'll use the hair dryer every day over a week and it'll still be laying out and it dries during the day. I'll do it again at night with a hair dryer and then I frame it, I hang it on the wall. 3 months later, look at this. In fact, these 3 prints, which I hung up 2 months ago, were full of it. And I took my wife all right, stop with the outgassing comments, So anyway, so it's an issue. So you got to watch out for that. That is certain types of paper, usually glossy or semi-glossy. So you can hang it in the warm room. This is what people advise you to do, but it's a trick. And then, is that the last note? Okay. And you can clean it. It cleans off real easily. You clean it off with the glass very easily. All right. So are we doing on time? All right. So the print viewing tonight, boy, did that ruin that print. Wow. Okay. So so what I'd like you to do is that you can start with any print. There's one back there and there's 2 up here. And feel free to ask questions and offer comments or anything, but just wander around. I'm not sure how we will do this with the people, but we'll work this on Zoom. But we'll try to work that out and see if they can follow us around. Okay. So any questions to this point? Anything that I've said about flowers, focus stacking, anything? Okay, yeah.
You want to get a really good print made.
Right.
That's what they call it.
Right, right.
What process do they use? Yeah.
Well, you get to, yeah, they use inkjet, just like, in fact, the printer, it's a professional printer. And so it's the Epson like 3880, and it's a really good printer. And I think it's been replaced recently. But you get to pick the paper. And so it's not an issue if you pick some of the, um, I wouldn't say flat, but more less glossy papers. But I use Epson premium luster paper. It's a really good paper and it's reasonably priced. I did buy some of their paper that was twice that price, and it feels like darkroom paper, and it's really good. They did a lot of research. A lot of people like it, but it curls up real easily, and so you got to roll it backwards to get it to go through your printer and stuff. But I did not find the blacks or the whites to be as vibrant as the paper I use. So I'll still use it here and there, but mostly for testing. So when you choose the paper, and you can check with them, because if you put these prints behind glass, straight out of Bay Photo, they may get you a print in 5 or 6 days. I don't know what they do for drying, and some of the printers don't talk about the outgassing, but it's a mess. It's really, when you get into it, everybody has the problem, for these types of papers. And you'll see these images that you're going to see really good tones and so on the images. But you get to choose the paper, and you can ask about it. Ask about outgassing. How do you guys dry it? And should I expect any outgassing from that? Because if you're going to frame it, especially if you take it to a framer where they really seal it in there, it can be a problem. So yeah, good question. Yeah. Home Depot. What's that? Oh yeah, sorry. He said, Wayne asked, where do I buy the light bulbs? It's a very technical answer. If you've ever heard of this place called Home Depot. So that's where I get the light bulbs. They come in packs of 2. They're like $10 for 2 bulbs. And they're LEDs, so they don't get really hot. And they're nice light bulbs. Yeah. And they have a 90 color rendering index, which is to find something that nice at Home Depot, because they're not really sometimes they're hard to find, but they usually carry them. So yeah, the question is, in doing focus stacking, does aperture make a difference? If you did, if I remember correctly, if you do a smaller aperture, are there fewer shots? Or if you want to shoot it wide open, is there more? And so, yeah, here's a photograph here. This is a tin type photograph done last week of my wife and I with one of my cameras by a tin type photographer group. I had done a photograph of them last year. I think it was October or something like that. August, okay. And I printed it and I gave it because I met these guys and I just gave it to them, and they loved it and they wanted more copies. So I did that. Well, they then said, hey, we want to come and photograph you and do a portrait of you and your wife. So that was just last week. And this is the wet plate collodion process that was used in the 1800s. And they do the whole wet plate thing, and they bring their own dark, did it at the park, Creek Park, and it was a hoot. And so, yeah, sorry, the question was the focus. So I was going to say, these guys, they're shooting wide open, 8x10 camera, and the depth of field was like this. And so he had to tilt the back to get the camera and us in focus. So everything else is just blown out. you have to be careful going too low, like f2 or f1.8 or something like that. It'd take a lot of shots. You could do it. It'd take a lot of shots, but I don't think there's a lot of benefit. There can be some problems with some other diffraction problems at that low area. And at the same time, I could have shot these images at f22, and there's other diffraction problems at that end. And so usually in a lens, there's some sweet spots. Most of the lens sweet spots are at f5.6, f8, and f11, right in there for most lenses on 35 millimeter type cameras right now. So I try to use that with that knowledge to say, okay, because a lot of people are out there doing testing. You can get graphs and all kinds of stuff online. But when stacking, if you can hone in on the sweet spot of the lenses, you know, you'll get a better result than if you don't. Okay, that's my experience on this so far. I haven't been doing this for a long time. So any other questions? Okay, so I think there's enough lighting here. So as long as you all agree not to me for turning the lights off while you walk around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the tape off of each one of these, and then you can just wander around, look at the prints, and put yourself in my position. Okay, so you're up next week, and you're going to do the same thing. You're going to show your favorite 3 prints, and so this is, to go to a group of photographers and say, I want to show you my prints. You see, so I enjoy doing this, but I understand how sometimes people feel about having their own work viewed. You know, I thought it was a great photograph, and people gave me a whatever comment. You know, so there is the photograph that you saw in the demonstration. Okay.